Let's chat. It's about your life. Frank Garcia is with us this morning. He's from Insurance KO. And contrary to popular belief, I will share this with you. Contrary to and I did have a real estate or an insurance license many, many moons ago. It's about 25 years, 20 years, something like that. I had an insurance license. I no longer have an insurance license. They don't take the education away from you. So, contrary to popular belief, there are things in this world that are expenses, and there are things in this world that are investments. If you listen or read Robert Kiyosaki's work, he says the house you live in is an expense because money goes out, it doesn't come back in. Now, at some point in time, you might sell it or your heirs might sell it, so it might become, it's still an asset, but it's an expense. Rental property, that should be an investment. Got to help a lot of the politicians. They have a problem because anytime they spend money, they call it an investment. If there's a return on invest and a return, then it can be an investment. If gas prices go up, that's an expense. So one of the things I want to chat, Frank Garcia is with us. Insurance, many types, almost every insurance that's out there, you're banking on the fact that I don't want my money back, right? You're trading your risk for your money. Well, in life insurance, maybe there's ways to get your money back and use it as an investment and not a sunk expense. And that's what we're going to talk to Frank about today. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
So insurance, I got my first life insurance policy probably right when I found out that my wife was pregnant with my first son.
Okay. Yeah.
And all my friends were buying term policy then.
Okay.
And I bought universal.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, this is going to last me my whole lifetime.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I can cash it in when I want to.
Right.
I was growing cash value.
Yes.
Does it help me from running out of money?
Yeah. It will, it's like a hidden bank account. You're paying it. It sounds like to you, it feels like it's a bill every month, but part of that bill that you're paying is building cash and growing tax deferred, and you're able to get all your money back all the way up to the cost basis, which is what you put into it at some point when you decide to take it out on a loan or cash the policy out. So it's kind of like a forced savings with the risk protection, protecting your life, for your livelihood.
So how would one use that now? So, I'm old, fat, and bald. I don't know if I think they call those, what's the term that they use in insurance?
Uninsurable.
There you go.
Yeah.
Or I think they call it when you're young, fat, and bald, they call it rated or something.
Rated, yeah, highly rated.
Highly rated.
There you go.
And now all we want is to have our radio program highly rated, right? You don't want your insurance policy highly rated.
Very true. That's true.
So, but let's just say somebody, I got 3 boys in their early 30s.
Yes.
Is insurance an investment for them or an expense?
Oh, definitely. Well, you got to look at each situation separately, and definitely you got to look at the risk exposure. A nice feature that a lot of people are doing now is young people are buying a 30-year guaranteed term life insurance policy. The premium's guaranteed for 30 years, and the face amount of the policy is guaranteed for 30 years. So they buy a large portion of that, and then they take and buy a smaller portion in permanent life insurance, like you talked about, universal life or index life. And they buy that, and they keep paying that. So later on in life, when that term insurance disappears and they're still living, they have this guaranteed policy that has cash value in it for future death benefit, for future retirement benefit, for future college education benefit. It's there and it's usable. So that's a nice, attractive way to do it.
Now I've talked about using insurance for a lot of different things for a lot of years.
Yes.
And some of them, FINRA didn't like it when I talked about this 25 years ago at Merrill Lynch, but I don't have that license anymore, so I can talk about it.
Yes.
So I used to say, take the money, take some of that equity out of your real estate and put that equity to work in a insurance policy.
Right.
Now, back then, and I don't know if the rules have changed, you had to make sure you spoke to a educated insurance provider like yourself,
Yes.
because you didn't want to get involved in what they called a MEC.
Yeah, modified endowment contract.
Is that still the case?
That's still the case.
So you got to make sure that if you're taking a large sum of money, you don't just invest it the wrong way.
Well, investing it the wrong way is maybe not the way to put it. Putting too much money in the policy, because the IRS figured out that you are allowing the money to grow in their tax deferred up to the cost base you can take it out. So back when, before they developed the MEC, that meant people were just cramming money into policies and not looking at the tax issue. Well, now the IRS has the MEC, modified endowment contract, in place, and you can only put to a certain limit, up into a 7-year pay limit. And that's, that can be calculated, but you can go right up to the borderline and grow these contracts, significant value and cash value as they grow year after year after year by, the maximum MEC funding of the contract. Yeah.
So when we come back, I want to chat with you more about the MEC, how to navigate so you don't get involved in that, and the insurance policy versus the 401k or the Roth IRA. Now, and we don't give financial advice. Frank does his insurance and his licensing. He can give that stuff. I don't have those licenses anymore, but I know some of the questions. Continuing our conversation, we're speaking this morning. Frank Garcia is with us. Insurance KO is the name of the company. I promise, or at least I'm hoping, that Frank's not going to knock me out, KO me here in the studio. So
not today.
Not today. I guess So I guess I've been nice enough to him today. So I'm still okay today.
There you go.
Okay, so before the break, and if you missed what we were talking about before the break, shame on you. You should have been listening. But I'm going to go over it. I'm not going to go over all of it. I'm just going to give you a little bit of the information that we were talking about, because I do want you to know some of these things. I want you to understand we were talking about investing and making sure that you're not getting yourself involved in a MEC, a modified endowment contract. And there's ways that Frank understands how to put the amount of money you want. So, and I'm just going to throw a number out there. It doesn't necessarily mean anything other than it's a number for us to talk about. So, Frank, I got $1 million. I want to put it into an insurance policy. I want to set it all in there today.
Okay.
That's going to hit me with the MEC rules, right?
Yeah, you're going to have to look at the MEC rules, and you do what they call as a single premium life, and you run the illustrations first, and the illustration is going to say how much does the face amount of the policy have to be to absorb $1 million, and to guarantee it out to what age, say 100. And then what would the assumption or the current interest rate or current index return be on that? And some of the contracts today, we just did an annuity recently. The cap on the index was 11% for a 7-year period. Get serious. That's fabulous.
That is.
Right?
So I want to go back to something you just said there, Frank, because this is a big issue.
Yeah.
When you're listening to some of the so-called experts on TV, and there's one of them that I'm not going to mention his name, Mr. Fisher, but they talk about the idea that they would never put somebody into an annuity. To me, that seems like it's pretty stupid, because those products were out there and they were created.
Right.
And maybe they're not right. The way I look at it, and you tell me if I'm wrong, Frank, no product is right for everybody, but there is every product's right for somebody, for the right situation.
Correct. And, to tie together what I mentioned just a minute ago on the index being, the cap being 11% for a 7-year period, that was for that type of product. And basically, the same thing can be put into a life insurance contract to do the same thing. In other words, it can earn up to 11%, and anything in excess of that, of course, the company keeps it, but you can get 11% all the way up. And the floor is 0, so you don't lose anything. But the real nice feature about
you got to go back on that, Frank, because that's a lot of people gloss over that. If you got a
being
floor,
0%,
right? So you can't lose.
So you're not going to lose. So you put $1 million in there, right? And you put it into an index product with the floor being 0. You're not going to lose any money, but you're going to have all the upside as far as it can grow.
And that's a big issue. So
yeah. And it's tax deferred.
I'm going to let you do a little math here, not on air. We're not going to do it here, but you do it on your own. If you say you've got $1,000 invested, the market drops, say 20%, which is not outrageous. How much does it take the market to go back up to get back to your $1,000? It's not 20%. Right. So when Frank says to you that you're protected on the downside,
right?
Who cares if you're limited at 11% on the upside? That means your money's doubling. What is that, every 6.5 years?
Exactly.
Right? That's a big, big benefit. Now, talk a little bit, Frank, because I'm a big believer in this, but I'm not licensed and you are. I like using insurance more than a 401k or a Roth IRA.
Well, that's true. And that goes back to what I drew up the example of in your early years buying 30-year term, say for the mortgage amount, and then buying a permanent form of insurance, say 300,000 or 500,000, and building equity in it. So now what you've done with that in later years, if you continue it and continue to put money into it, is maybe even every 5 years, you increase the contributions by $50 or $100 towards that policy. Now what you've done towards retirement years is you've built another leg on your stool, right? For security and for retirement benefit, because it has a huge amount of cash value in it. That can be a huge benefit. Now, if you compare that to a 401k, traditional 401k, basically what you're doing is you're putting money into it, pre-tax, deducting it from your income tax, but when you take the money out, it's taxable. So there you are. You're being taxed on that money, where if it was in the life insurance policy, you wouldn't be taxed on the cost basis. Now, also the other issues regards to a Roth, it's another smart idea in having a 401k that maybe you're putting 50% towards the Roth 401k and 50% towards the traditional 401k. So half is growing tax deferred, tax free when you take it out on the Roth, and the other one is taxable. So you have a combination of taxable income and non-taxable income, another leg on the stool for the benefit in the future to have money.
So all of these things that Frank's talking about, and we talk about on Ron Siegel Radio all the time, it's all about planning, right? You have to get professional guidance. And I'm going to share with you plain old. You can do everything we just said online. You might even be able to do it right. The question is, are you willing to take that risk, right? Because all of these things are available. But I'm blessed in the fact that I get to talk to people like Frank on a regular basis. Right, so I'm able to learn about these things. Where else would you go to learn about them other than to Ron Siegel Radio and our guests? But the bottom line is you can go online and do all these things, and you may end up doing them wrong, and it may cost you money, and it may be too late to find out about those things. And if it is costing you money, that's the reason why you want professional guidance. When there's a reason that the wealthiest people in this country choose to use the highest expense investment advisors. Why? Because they get a great return on investment. If you want to go to a hedge fund, in most instances, not all of them, but most instances, you have to have $5 million of assets to go to a hedge fund. And they're going to charge you 20% of the profit and 3% as an administrative fee every year. A lot of people say, well, I'm not going to pay that much. I'm going to go to Charles Schwab and I'm going to pay whatever. Well, you can. Why do the wealthy people do the exact opposite? Because they don't care about the cost. They care about the return. And that's what Frank is sharing. We hear about 11%.
11%
cap.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, one of the things when we come back that I want to chat about is I want to chat about aging America. And everybody, if you're lucky, you're going to get there. Now, there's some people that took the freeway this morning that are not going to get there. It's just the way it is. We never know. But there's no reservations. But what I'm going to talk about is planning for your golden years or your last years. We're going to talk with Frank Garcia about that when we come back. Continue our conversation. Frank Garcia is with us. Insurance KO is the company name. And what I want to talk about, Frank, is something that hopefully, well, I guess sort of. Hopefully we all have a long and healthy life. And maybe if you're so inclined as a golfer, the 19th hole is your final spot. Doesn't work that way for everybody. We don't get to plan it. But as we get older and older, I hear more and more, and I'm sure you do also, being in your line of work, people get sick and obviously pass, but while they're sick, they haven't always planned for how to cover that expense.
Exactly.
Talk about that a little bit.
Yes. Well, what we're talking about, he's referencing, is the need for long-term care. That's a huge, huge debt to the nation, because most people, 70% of people age 65 or older are going to need some form of long-term care insurance, long-term care to be taken care of in a nursing home, skilled facility, at-home care. And most people want to be able to be cared for in their home.
Sure.
Well, there's products now that are available for you that can do that. And probably the best product now that is available is a life insurance policy with a long-term care rider on it. And the rider is attached to the policy at the time of issue, and you can get 2%, 3%, or 4% of the face amount paid to you on a monthly or annual basis. And you can get that on what they call is not a reimbursement product, but an indemnity benefit. So in other words, let's say that you bought a policy for $300,000 as an example, and let's say that you bought it with 4%. So 3 times 4 is 12. That's $12,000. That's $12,000 of long-term care benefit after 90 days elimination period that would be paid to you up until the time that the $300,000 is spent. Let's say that you only needed that for 2 years.
So if my math is right, that's about 25 years.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. And let's say that you only needed that for 2 years. Then the balance of the amount would be paid in a death benefit to you, your family, whoever you had as a
your
designated
estate or your
beneficiary.
heirs.
Exactly. This feature is very, very attractive in today's market, because people look at it and say, well, I'm not going to lead long-term care. Okay, well, you're going to be dying someday, correct? Yes, that's true. Well, but what about the money I put into it? What about the cash value I have in the policy? Well, it has 3 stools, 3 legs on the stool, right? Death benefit, long-term care, and has cash value. So you get to the end of the period that you say, I don't need this policy anymore. You cash it in and you get all the money out of it that you've put into it up to the cost basis and no tax on it. So that's pretty nice, I think.
Sounds, and everybody's going to need it. And if you've got that cash value, or I should ask you, if you have the life insurance policy with the long-term care rider,
yes,
and you've got a 90-day waiting period,
90-day elimination period, yes.
That means
the first 90 days, they're not going to pay long-term care benefit. After you have a loss of 2 or more activities of daily living, then you're qualifying for the long-term care benefit.
So let me ask this question on that, Frank.
Yeah.
Can you borrow some of your cash value in that first 90 days?
Of course you could.
So if you need to sustain yourself for that period of time.
Right.
Now I'm going to share something that.
But most companies, okay, as an example, that's a good question. But how would I look at somebody and talk to them about that issue if they had that? I'd say, look, let's talk to wherever you're planning on going for care, whoever you're planning on providing care for you, and let them know that you have this policy and that you're 90 days from now, they're going to have access to the benefit, right? Most of those people are going to say, most of the providers are going to say, I understand that. That's very good. We'll take that on assignment when that happens. So, you have ways to cross that bridge to get where you need to go.
So think about this concept, because I think Frank is spot on here. Nobody's going to need it. Nobody needs life insurance. Nobody's going to die. Nobody's going to ever get in a car accident. Nobody's going to ever have any of these issues that come up because we're young. Well, I used to be. Yeah. But it happens every single day.
Yes.
Now what I want you to do is look around you. Did your parents die on the spot, or did they have an extended illness? How about your grandparents, aunts, uncles, friends? If you're older, these are all things that happen every day. Yet we look and say, it's not going to happen to me. Well, guess what? I hope you're right. But is hope a financial plan? I don't think so. I think the idea is to say, you know something? Frank's got an idea here, and he's seeing it all the time. It's not like he's coming out with this just out of the blue.
Right. This is not a surprise to people. It's just that people put it away, don't think about it, and they forget
It's
about
hard
it.
to think about it, Frank, because we're
Yeah, that's
talking, we're
right.
thinking about, you know,
Well,
being
it's-
sick and dying.
Yeah,
And
but you got to think about it. We are all leaving, or we're living a legacy. While we're living, we need to think about how we're going to be leaving this legacy, because what's your story? You're going to have a story someday. People are going to look back on and say, hey, that guy, that lady, that family did it right. You know, or that guy, that lady, and that family, they did the best they could.
sure.
But guess what? If you miss the opportunity, right, shame on you, because you do have an opportunity to make a fix of where you're at today.
And these things aren't always available, right? No one was really, when I was young, they didn't really talk about a long-term care rider. They had a long-term care policy. It was a separate policy all its
Right.
own.
And the reason for that was, let's look back. People used to have the family. The family would come in and take care of it. But what do we have now? We have at least 2 income earners in every home.
Sure.
Mom and dad, they work every day just to make ends meet, right? And they also have grandma and grandpa coming in to take care of the kids because they're off working. So now who's going to take care of grandma and grandpa, or mom and dad, when they're trying to take care of your kids? You got to have a plan in place to take care of them, because they took care of you.
And it's not cheap. You know, if you have somebody that needs 24-hour care and they want to stay in the house, you're probably talking somewhere $12,000 to $18,000 per month.
Yes.
Right? So
right.
How long do you think your money lasts then? Just throwing that out there. And I'm not trying to be a downer this morning when you're listening, or this evening, whenever you're listening to us. I'm trying to give you a reality check. If you're a young couple planning on having kids, you know, something, that golf accident, that body surfing accident, that motorcycle, skiing, whatever it is you like, they happen.
Life happens. Yes.
Life happens.
Life happens. And we need to be prepared, because we do have an opportunity to cover the risk. The risk is what's important. And we have an opportunity to take care of the risk and be on top of our game, because that's what we're fighting for every day, to be the best that we are and be on top of our game. So step out in faith and find the way to be on top of your game. The risk protection is there.
There you go. It's an opportunity. You just need to make the call.